Thank you for watching this informational presentation on the FY23 Fund Code 225 Expanded Learning Time Grant. This presentation is specific to districts and schools that have previously implemented ELT successfully through this grant. Well before the pandemic, challenges were surfacing in terms of the capacity for districts and schools to continue with ELT. With schools having implemented additional time for many years, costs started to become difficult to incur, and financial sustainability had become a constant battle. Teachers were reporting fatigue, and the strict requirement around adding 300 additional hours was increasingly challenging to maintain. Following the pandemic, the strict requirements of this grant became unfeasible for many. Districts have found themselves juggling more new initiatives and heightened fatigue for everyone. It became imperative that schools and districts receive some flexibility to address the difficulties presented by the pandemic in order to get back on track and better as a result. Despite these challenges, the legislature recognizes the rewards of ELT in the model that you have all pioneered. The ELT line item has been included in the FY23 state budget so far in the budget cycle and will likely be funded. However, there has been a reduction in funding in recent years, which has forced some changes in how we can approach ELT in ways that are less burdensome for schools and districts. I will talk about some flexibilities in a moment, but for now, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the grant. For the reasons I just mentioned, we have posted our FY23 ELT grant as an opportunity for both our veteran schools, like you, and new schools, but with significant flexibilities for both. For the purposes of this presentation, let's focus on our veteran schools that will apply under Category 1 of the grant. This year, to be eligible for this grant, veteran schools must have a demonstrated record of success with ELT. This means that schools are only eligible to apply if they do not fall in the lowest 10th percentile on the state accountability system. Also, only schools that have not had ELT funding discontinued in the past are eligible. As you look at the RFP as posted on our website, Addendum B is one of the documents you may want to access. Here's what you'll see: a list of veteran schools that are eligible to apply for this funding opportunity, having remained above the lowest 10th percentile and demonstrated successful implementation. You will notice that we have included any district and school that meets those criteria that has implemented ELT prior to the pandemic. Although some districts appear on this eligibility list, some of the schools within that district may not appear. Again, the schools on this list are those that have met the eligibility requirements for this grant. Now let's look at some of the flexibilities we are offering through this grant. First and foremost, we want to be responsive to the need for fewer required hours associated with this funding. While some of you may want to continue with the full 300 additional hours with funding calculated at $1,300 per pupil, we are accepting proposals outlining a day that adds no fewer than 50 additional hours above the district average. This too may be flexible depending on district contractual conditions. Because this shift will bring variability across schools and districts, funding will then be calculated by districts and schools based on identified needs. When applying, districts will submit a draft budget, which appears as an Excel document in the application materials on the RFP, which will contain a requested funding amount based on the costs associated with grant activities within the proposed number of additional hours. Keep in mind that, as always, funding is subject to final state appropriation. As you think about what this new iteration of ELT might look like, consider the opportunities that a flexible number of hours, a mix of one or more tenets of ELT, which I'll talk about in a moment, greater financial resources to adopt innovative strategies to serve students, and support from DESE in the form of connections and sharing best practices. You may also want to consider some of the research around ELT. For example, according to a 2021 report issued by EdTrust, some practices in adding time have been shown to be more effective than others. Similar to what you've done in the past, ELT has shown to be more effective when it is part of the school day or year for all students, adds at least 45 hours, and is taught by certified teachers who receive ongoing support. You will also notice that it has been found to be most successful with high-quality curriculum in place. Again, this information, along with your experience and data, should help to inform your new model and hopefully allow for some exciting innovation. In keeping with the information in the previous slide, this is just a reminder of what ELT is and what ELT is not. This grant is focused on expanding time, not extending it. It is a day or school year that contains more time within a schedule that makes the most of that time. It is an opportunity to use the time to accelerate student learning and close gaps and provide students with a rich, engaging, robust, and culturally responsive learning experience. What ELT is not is an extension of time or an add-on. It is not only for a group of students. It's the way we are doing school for all students who attend that school. And it is not an added period where students are with partners as opposed to teachers, such as an after-school program. So what could this next generation of ELT look like in practice? Although you're welcome to embed into your design all three components of ELT, which are more time for academics, more time for PD and collaboration for teachers, and more time for enrichment opportunities for students. Part of the flexibility we are offering this year is making the and into an and or. You may only want to embed some common planning time into your days, so teachers have embedded PD and space to collaborate, share instructional practices that promote deeper learning, define expectations across the school for both students and teachers, engage in data discussions to inform instruction, and learn to better utilize high-quality instructional materials. And or you may look at your data and determine that kids need more time, particularly for math or writing. This may lead you to redesign your schedule to accommodate longer blocks of academic time that then allow teachers to support students in smaller groups, conference with students around interim data and setting goals, differentiate instruction more effectively, go deeper into content, or even offer an additional course to students to provide more variety and opportunity for engaged learning. If this is the case, you might just add time for core academics. Or maybe you want to better engage kids in school and decide to offer some enrichment opportunities that are embedded in the day and designed around student interest, but also aligned with the frameworks to reinforce academic concepts. You may choose to add some time for enrichment opportunities that could take place during common planning time rather than add time for longer core academics. If you decide that students at your school and perhaps your school climate would best benefit from enrichment, that might be a great thing to incorporate into your redesigned day. Just be sure to design your enrichment in ways that can be measured for engagement and outcomes that allow all students to participate, meaning kids aren't pulled from enrichment to attend intervention. Courses have a final demonstration, portfolio, or project that celebrates student work, and enrichment should also receive dedicated resources such as time and materials to be done exceptionally well. Or you decide that you want to implement additional time similar to the ways you have done so in the past, but with tweaks that you feel necessary and beneficial that can now be done with flexible time. This slide provides some examples of what schools have done in the past in combining all three tenets of ELT into their day. For example, maybe kids have daily PE, art, or music. Maybe you have bi-weekly enrichment periods for kids. Maybe you have more frequent time for social studies or science, or specialist delivered enrichment. This will allow you to be more creative and more intentional in how you're using the time that you choose to embed in your day. If you decide to pursue this funding opportunity, I'd now like to quickly go through the application with you. Part 1, which you see on this slide, asks for some school and district demographic information. It does include a couple of things that have been prioritized in this grant and in the legislative language. This grant continues to intentionally support students in our low-income population, and we ask that you provide that percentage of students in your school along with the percentage of students in the high-needs student group. In the second chart, we are looking to gather information on eligibility, such as your school's accountability percentile and some other competitive priorities. Since many districts are anticipating a large increase in Chapter 70 funding, many are not, we want to make sure that districts that are not receiving as much new Chapter 70 money still have an opportunity to expand time, even if they can't afford it themselves. We are also prioritizing high-quality instructional materials, or HQIM, in the hope that folks are either trying to adopt it or need financial support to best implement it. We have also established a set of other competitive priorities for this grant. Although we do not anticipate this will be highly competitive, Competitive priority will go to veteran schools that have demonstrated success in implementation, as seen on site visits, and those who received ELT funding in FY22. In an effort to drive more sustainable models, we are encouraging districts to use some of their Chapter 70 Student Opportunity Act funding toward ELT, and competitive priority will go to those districts that are not anticipating a significant increase in those funding sources, and therefore may require additional funding through this grant to help with the cost of implementation. Other competitive priority will go to those schools or districts adopting or implementing HQIM and those schools and districts that are chronically underperforming. Back to the application. Part 2 asks for your rationale and how you believe additional time will help support your work in addressing your greatest need, close gaps, and drive your biggest priorities. This section asks you to make sure you include data around student need. Also, because of the tight timeline for this application, we ask that this section be no longer than 1 page in length. Part 3 of the application is a chart asking you to share any data you referenced when identifying where there are gaps that need to be closed and the grant-related activities that will help you close those gaps. This does not need to be exhaustive, but should demonstrate where you found gaps to exist. Part 4 is a chart that will hopefully help you align activities with need and start to estimate the time you will require to have the highest impact and what you estimate the cost to be. This will also be helpful in developing your budget. Part 5 is more specific to developing a possible school schedule in terms of how much time you'll be adding overall. This may allow for some creative thinking as well. For example, perhaps you decide to eliminate half days in favor of full day PD to alleviate absenteeism on half days. What might that allow you to do in terms of additional days or time for kids? We ask that you have your submission in by July 20th, which is tight. Rather than put it into EdGrants, we will have you submit it directly to Moira Connolly at moira.connolly@mass.gov. The documents that you will need to submit by the end of the day on the 20th include your signed and scanned cover sheet requesting a funding amount that you anticipate you will need to implement your model, your draft budget workbook showing those costs, your Part 3 required information, and your Addendum A signed grant assurances. Once awards are made, recipients will upload their final Part 1 cover sheet and budget into EdGrants. If you have any questions, please submit them via email to me at moira.connolly@mass.gov. Thank you.